Hi everyone, it's Tangi from Papercrafting Australia. Pleased to have you back for another session. It's class number 3, so we're almost, well, by the end of this, we're 3/4 of the way through the trial for October. So thank you once again for joining me. I'm pre-recording this session because I'm going to be quite busy on Tuesday when this session will air, and it gives me a chance to have a bit of a go at recording and then uploading that to YouTube rather than just streaming live as we have been doing. So today it's actually Sunday for me, so a couple of days before you'll get to see this. It's been a good day here in Melbourne. We have been allowed to go out a little bit further than we have been in the past, so instead of 5 kilometres we can now travel 25 kilometres, which is fantastic. It lets me go to Officeworks and Bunnings, so I'm very stoked about being able to go and click and collect rather than waiting on couriers and Australia Post. Don't get me started. I also have had a big win today. I follow the Melbourne Vixens, the netball team, and they won the Suncorp Super Netball season today, so that's really exciting. It's a bit of a shame that we weren't able to have them in Melbourne to watch the game live, but able to watch it live on TV, which was the next best thing. I've also had my shopping delivered already today, so I am ready to go for hitting the ground running for the rest of the week. Anyway, today we're going to make 2 Christmas cards, and I'll just give you a quick little look at what they are going to look like. So these are the cards that we're going to make today. We're going to start, funnily enough, with the second one rather than the first one that I've got on the screen there. So with that, I will go straight down to my mat. No, I won't. That's the other camera. We'll go this way, straight down to this one. So this is the card that we're going to be making today, and I've got a couple of little alterations and changes that we can make to the card. So first of all, from your kit, you're just going to need to, you've got your envelope there, pop that aside. You've got your white card, so a big square card this week, a little bit different to the rectangular cards that we've done in the past weeks. You've got a red piece of card, which as you can see from the example is the backing mat. You've also got, and everyone will have slightly different colours of these, which is the die cut fascia for your card today. Now there is a bit of a right way, wrong way, and for some of you that won't be a problem. Clearly mine's blue. Christmas tree in the top left-hand corner is the way it is designed. However, on the back you could actually do it the other way, except for a few of you where some of the die cuts haven't cut properly and you'll see some of the colour has, the top colour of the paper has been torn off. So you may or may not be able to use it either way, depending on how well yours was cut. And I do apologise to anyone who's got one that won't go the way that they would like it to go today. Now I've asked everybody to bring along with them as well just a little piece of Christmas paper. So I've got this is just gold wrapping paper that I've managed to grab a little piece of. And what you want is a piece that's big enough to kind of go behind this section. Okay, now that's for only if you don't like the look of whatever colour yours is on the red background. I've also got an option for you if you would like to do yours on a white background. So that would sit something like that, close. And you'd have the white background and the red backing mat there. So I'll show you quickly both ways. What I've done in order to achieve this little red cutout is I've just taken my piece of card that was in the kit to start with. I've done a quick little measure about how far in from the edge this die cut starts, and they will all be a millimetre or 2 different. For this one it's about 5 mil in, so considering that we then want a little bit of the mat showing outside of that, I've actually cut mine to about 8 millimetres thick. So I've just taken my card and I have grabbed a ruler and a pen, and I'll do it in pen just so that you guys at home can see it on my work surface. I've just measured, I'm going to go 7 mil in from each end and just mark a couple of little spots. And just mark the same on the bottom so that you've got somewhere to line up to. And then draw a line down here. Now the good thing is that you can draw on the back of it, and it doesn't matter what colour or how heavy or dark you do that, because you will be able to turn it over and use the other side for the front of the card. So then you've got a line top and bottom like so, and then if you just measure down the two sides, going quite quickly because I'm just showing this as a bit of an option and I don't want to take up everybody's time. It is perfectly fine to carry on after the tutorial time and just tinker with, you know, bits and pieces if you haven't managed to finish it all in the allotted time. It's really hard to judge how long it's taking everybody at home when I can't see where you're at. So bear with me. If you're not finishing on time, do not feel bad. So once you've got that cut out, grab yourself a cutting mat, and I've just used a craft knife. You could use a Stanley knife or an X-Acto knife. You might have a box cutter or something along those lines, and just cut from each on each side. Just cut out that inner square, and then you'll have a little frame. So I don't need to show you how to cut. You know how to cut things like that, and you'll end up with something that looks like this, and then you can use that instead of the full mat to go behind your fascia piece. So I'm just going to clear off that mat because we don't need that there forever, or that pen. Okay, so it's pretty quick to assemble this one. It's not going to take us very long at all. So you can choose, first of all, whether you are going to put the full mat down, in which case that's a pretty simple glue that down, give it a bit of space on either side, and you can use your liquid glue to do that because it's quite heavy, that cardstock, and it won't warp too badly. Then you can lay down the paper on top. Now with this one, because it is quite thin, I would suggest putting it onto a scrap piece of paper, and I haven't actually prepared myself a scrap piece of paper. 2 seconds. Lucky everything's within reach here. So pop that down on a scrap piece of paper, get your purple glue stick out, glue all over the back of it, and then you'll be able to pop that down. Just be gentle going around all of these little intricate areas. You might just need to dab glue rather than swiping it, but just make sure that you do get all of your corners nice and done. Now for this card, I'm actually going to make mine with the gold colour in behind. So to do that, we are going to need to dab this glue. I'm just going to dab these bits all the way around. Make sure your edges are nice and covered. Get a little bit on those little guys. And that bit. It's a little bit musical today. Make a bit of a racket. Now don't forget this purple glue does dry clear, so whatever you can see on here, if it does come through onto the other side a little bit, it will clear up as it dries later on. Just gluing off the screen there. Okay, so it doesn't look very pretty at the moment, but what I am going to do here is I'm going to pop down, now the gold side down, I'm going to pop my Christmas paper down almost to the edge, and I'm just going to swing it across there a little bit because I do want a little bit more on the edge so that the die cut piece will be able to go down, and then I'll just pop a little bit more glue onto the back of this. It doesn't need to be amazingly covered because we're going to seal it down with the back of the die cut piece. So I'm going to do the small frame for this one just so that people can see. I mean, you can obviously, pretty simple to understand, plonk that down. This one, although you're not going to see the effect because you won't see the white card coming through, it just gives you an idea to use the liquid glue for this one because it is a little bit thicker cardstock. So pop a couple of dots all the way around. Ding, ding. And all the way along there. It's kind of pretty. No one's going to see it because it's underneath. Okie dokie. So again, the liquid glue will allow you to move it a little bit. So once you've kind of eyeballed it, seen if it's kind of roughly in the right place, and then placed it down, you've got a little bit of time to wiggle it into place and just kind of adjust your borders, and then just smooth it all down, give it a bit of a smooth over, and that's that one there done. Now, because I prepped this and then didn't stick it down straight away, my glue's gone and dried. So I'm just going to quickly give that a bit more glue. Just as well, we've got plenty of it. It's not expensive, not wasting anything. So I've got that covered, pretty nice. I've also got a fan on in my room today because it's quite warm, so it's possibly moving some air around and drying it a little bit quicker than I would like. Now this one, again, you're just going to kind of eyeball it to see the edges of the red mat there. Find a little spot to pop it down, and then before you go smoothing it, just make sure that you've got it even, and then you can start tapping it down and giving it a bit of a smooth over, just so that you can glue all of that down. So if you didn't have the gold wrapping paper that I've got behind your card there, you would actually have a white background. And if you'd prefer, I mean, you could go over that section once you've put your red edge down. You could colour in between the red edge. If you wanted to do a different colour, you could use pencils or textures or anything else that you've got to colour that section, and that would be completely fine as a different look as well. Now we've all got these little sticker strips. Everybody's got slightly different ones. So some of you have got this white and silver stripe. There's some with gold stars. There's, I think, some green and red dots going around out there as well. And now it's just up to you whether you would like yours to go edge to edge on the, what I've got here, the blue section of card, whether you want to go edge to edge on the red section or edge to edge on the white, and you could even wrap it around inside if you had a longer piece and you wanted it to kind of continue the theme going through. But in terms of placing it and how and where we're going to put that, we've got the little gold background and the Merry Everything and Happy Always sentiment. Now, if you would like, you can always, if you've got a stamp that's small enough, you could flip that over and stamp one of your Christmas ones if you would prefer to have one of your Christmas greetings on there. I like the Merry Everything and Happy Always. It kind of just suits everybody. So I pre-stamped that for you just as an option. So because we've got glitter cardstock here, what you'll find is that the glue stick glue won't stick particularly well to that. So you will need to use your liquid glue, the PVA. So just turn over your little sentiment there, pop a little runner of glue around the outside edges, not too thick because you don't want it to all seep out underneath. I've found these little glue bottles have been really handy. I've not used them before, but I think I will continue to use them. They have been quite good to me. So take your sentiment strip again, pop that over the top and eyeball it just to see if you've got a bit of an even edge of gold around it. And then if you've got your acrylic block handy, I would just pop that on it just to give it a little bit of pressure and nice and smooth just for a few seconds while that dries. Now, as you can see, you're going to need to line this up depending on where you want your strip to go. You don't kind of, well, you might want it further down or further up and have it hanging off, or you might want to leave it off altogether. But just to kind of get a bit of an idea of where you want to put it, what I'm going to do, I've just, as you've seen, just popped the sentiment onto my work so I can see roughly where I'm going to go. And then I'm just going to pop just a little pencil line here, and then I'll grab my ruler. I'll just pop my sentiment aside and pop the acrylic block on it because it hasn't dried and stuck yet. So measuring that, it's about, we're about 33 millimeters off the bottom of the blue edge for me. So I'll just make a second one over there, and that'll give me something to aim for when I take the sticky backing off of this and go to put it down. I can line this up and just put it just a smidge over that grey lead pencil, and then I won't need to rub it out either. So with this one, you've got the sticky back. And before you do that, you might actually, if you do want to make it a little bit smaller than edge to edge, is to just take your scissors, line it up on one edge of that piece of paper, and then cut it to the edge that you're doing over here. Just like that. Save any little offcuts that you're going to have, because you might want to use them on next class's project. The treat box that's coming up, it has quite a lot of space for you to cover over, so it's very handy to have anything extra that you might have floating around, and you can have lots of options. Here we go again with the fingernails or lack thereof being a problem, just getting the sticky back off. There we go. Okay, so just take that off. It's harder to see because it is a clear one. Okie dokie. I'm just going to do this upside down so that I can see where those little lines are underneath there. So that's one on that side, and my other one is here. And we should get a relatively straight line. So we can stick that down. Now, because we've got also, again, a little bit of the glittery tape, it's a bit textured, and the glue stick won't stick to that very well at all. You'll probably have it dropping off in 3 seconds flat. There's a couple of options that you can do here. You can run a line of glue along the middle of your sentiment strip and then place that down so that it will glue from this smooth surface to the rough surface of your sticker strip. Or we can use our foam squares, and that's what I've done in this one. You can see that there's a little bit of dimension under there. It's popped up a little bit. And if you want to pop it up a little bit, it means that you only need to put probably 3 little foam squares on the top edge and the bottom edge, and that will then straddle that sticker rough material, and it means that you won't have any problems with things sticking down. It'll stick really well to that paper. So depending on whether you want to fight with the foam squares and the little backing papers, or if you do want to just glue that down, I'm going to fight with the little foam squares, because I do just think that the sitting up and having that little bit of extra dimension on there is quite fun. So I'll just go ahead and pop 6 of these on. You've all seen this in process before. Oops, stuck. Great, pop those out of the way. And I'm just going to peel off those little sticky friends off the back. Halfway there. Is anybody swearing and cursing right now? There we go. Okay, so I've got all of those, the 6 off. So you just need to hold it, figure out roughly where the center is, and I think, for this design, the 2 middle ones is middle circles are a pretty good idea. And then depending on where you want to place that, just hold it over the top, and when you're good to go, gentle press down and they will stick. Now it's up to you at this point whether you would like to add any more embellishments. So you might want to put some jewels on things, whether you want to pop some along this band, or whether you want to put some on the Christmas tree, anywhere you like really. You could pop a couple on your sentiment strip. I'm not going to argue with those today, because I want to try and get this class done and dusted for you. You can always finish at that point, keep moving with the rest of the class, and then come back and embellish things later. But that's the way that we're putting that one together. So that's the 2 options that we had. So this with the additional paper underneath, or leaving that paper out but having the thin red border so that you can see whatever is coming through from your card underneath. So I hope you found those fairly easy today. There's lots of just layer, stick things on top of other things, and then you're good to go. So I'm just going to get that one off the table for the moment and bring in the second card for today, and that is this one, which I'll call the Deck the Halls card for the time being, only because that's the stamp that I had in my stamp kit. So that's the one that I've decided to use. Now I'm going to switch across to a different version of the overhead camera because I want to show you a couple of different layouts that I've seen done with this little wreath shape. So you can have a look at what you would like your layout to do. There's lots of options, and look, I certainly haven't thought of them all, and you'll probably be able to find plenty of your own. But this one up the top obviously just has the one little posy down the bottom. This one's got some wreath business going on all the way around and plenty of room in the middle to pop your sentiment on that circle. This one's got a little bit at the top and a little bit at the bottom so that you can, make use of all of your little bits and pieces. The one over in the top right corner up here, a couple of little sprigs at the top and then a little bit more down the bottom. And this one down in the bottom corner, quite busy, lots of green and things like that. And it's up to you how you want to do it. You can use one piece, you can use all of the pieces. Totally gives you a little bit of freedom to play with this time. So what I'll do is I'll get out for you, and I'm going to have to keep watching my screen so that I can see that I'm not getting in the way of those or getting under those examples so that they stay there for you to keep a bit of an eye on. So I'm just going to pop my envelope out of the way because I don't need to do a lot with that. Now the other thing that you've got to play with is this backing paper is double-sided. You've got a bit of a black marbly look on the back and a white stone, almost like a kitchen bench top on the top. So it's up to you what kind of colour scheme you want to go with. I think the black might be a little bit too dark for what we're trying to achieve, but that's, it's up to you. And I've just dropped something off my table, so bear with me just a sec while I grab that. It's always the furthest away when you drop it. Just our little sentiment strips I had dropped. So see how you go. You might like the black background. You might have a little bit more white in your pattern, which might give you a little bit of extra oomph. But definitely the brown wood wreath doesn't really stand out off it particularly much. So the simple starting point to this one is just to glue down your backing card. So depending on what colour you're going with, I'm just going to get my little scrap paper back out again. Give that a good coating. Make sure you get the edges really well because that'll need to hold most of your card down to itself. Pop the lid back on so that doesn't dry out. And then making sure that your card is open the right way. Now you can open your card the normal book way. You can turn it and make it go up and down depending on what you would prefer. Hold your piece of card over your main card. Line it up a little bit, give it a bit of a wiggle into place. Don't forget the purple glue will dry clear, so wipe any excess off, but don't panic that it's just going to stay there and be that ugly purple. And just press down and make sure that all of that paper has actually stuck to your card. Okay. Now the next step for you is to figure out which way you're going to put your brown wreath. So you'll be able to see here that there's quite a bit of this circle here that doesn't have anything that kind of protrudes out from it. And then around the top, there's just these little nibs that kind of sit out there. So, you might want all of them to be up the top. You might want them to be on the side. Completely up to you. There's no right or wrong way as to how to put this down. What you will notice on the card that it's cut out of, though, is that there's a little bit of like a textured pattern on one side and a flat side. It's totally up to you as to which way you want to put that. I kind of like the texture. It kind of gives it a little bit of a bark-like feeling, and it will stick just as well either way. So it's completely up to you. I'm just going to flip mine over And this time I'm going to use the liquid glue, mainly because there's so many tiny little bits that I want to get, and I can't have that glue stick drying on me too quickly. So this is a bit of a quick bit of work that you'll need to do here, and hopefully I'm all on camera. So just running little bits of glue pretty much around the whole outside edge. It doesn't matter if it's not all stuck down, but you do want the majority of, I guess, one of the rings to be glued down. Otherwise you're going to have some pretty good problems with things falling off your card later on. Okay, so I'm just going to dab a few little dots onto some of these brown sprigs just so that they will sit down as well. Some of them I do want to have, you know, a little bit of an ability to play around with and lift them up, just to be able to tuck some of those holly leaves underneath. Just so I can play with some different ideas about how the layout goes. Okay, so I think I've got pretty much all of it covered there. So as you can see, you don't need a lot of glue, just a little teeny tiny bits. And then you can flip that over. Pop it into position. You'll notice it almost kisses all four sides of the paper underneath. And pop that there like that. Beautiful. So I'm just going to give that a little press down just to make sure that's all stuck. Now another idea that you could do if you wanted to was to make a cut in either side of the brown paper before you glued that down, and you could have a half circle at the bottom, or you could have a half circle at the top, or both, or sideways, or you know, you can mix and match and play with that kind of stuff. So it's something that you can definitely muck around with. You know, there's lots of pieces to play with. You can, you know, just give it a few different looks. Don't expect to finish it all right in this little tutorial today. Let's pop my glue paper aside. Okay, now we've got all the little bits that I've kept in a little old iPhone box. So you've got a few different holly leaves and berries so that you can play around with a bit of a layout. There should be, I think, 2 of each of the leaves and then 6 little berries for you. So there's these little fern-like ones. And of course, they're all just wanting to grab and stick to things on my page. So you've got those little ones there, a couple of big ones, and some of them do look very, very similar. There's not much difference between them. So it doesn't really matter, I suppose, but you've kind of got 4 slightly bigger leaves and 2 little smaller ones. There are actually kind of 3 sizes, but they're very, very close together. So it's up to you at this point as to whether you want to choose one of the options that are on your screen to make, or if you want to go along with, you know, playing around with some ideas to make your own. This is the one that I did as the sample, so very much like the one down in the bottom left corner of your screen. I'm going to do, I think, the top left one today, just to make things, it's I guess the smallest amount of mucking around to do, the least things on screen. So when you're layering things like this, just start with the things that are at the back, at the bottom, and then layer up. So I'm going to start with these little ferny sprigs. And again, just like we did before, pop those out of the way, my little bit of scrap paper, and I'll use my liquid glue because that gives me a little bit of an ability to move things while they're in place and they haven't quite dried yet. Just pop a couple of little dabs of glue on there. We're pretty much going to cover up those little tiny sprigs at the bottom, so I wouldn't try and be clever and run glue down those little ferny stalks. Just wondering if I've done this completely wrong now. No. So I'm going to pop that in so that the little stalk in the middle is around the center, and I'm just going to pull that down a little bit so it's not quite on top of the brown section there. And then I'll do the same with the one on the other side. So I'm going to be quite symmetrical with this one. I do a lot of craft that is very symmetrical. I like the geometry and symmetricality of things like that. Keeps me happy. So then for the next layer, I'm going to take 2 of the larger leaves. Make sure that you've got them pointing in the directions that you want, and then flip them over. This time I can pop a little bit more glue onto these ones, and it doesn't have to be very pretty. And then again, meeting them roughly in the middle, but I'm going to bring them up so that they are a little bit higher than the little ferny ones, and they can poke out at the bottom. Oops, I've almost stuck my fingers to the paper. And then just pop the second one on the other side. Again, keeping that up off the fern just a little bit. And then I've got, again, I think another couple of the big ones. I think I'll leave the little ones off for the moment. I'll save those for the Class 4 project. So I'll just go with a little bit of glue on each of those. Ta-da! Squiggles and dots and things going everywhere. Beautiful. Okay, so I want these ones to stick quite a way up, and I'm not going to push the top of that one down just yet. I'm just going to bring this other one in and just have a little bit of play, just to make sure that I'm kind of filling as much as I like. Now, don't forget that you've got your sentiment backing and the sentiment circle that you'll be able to stamp onto, and presumably you'll want to fit it somewhere in here. You might want to pop it down here and have, you know, some sprigs growing a little bit further out from there. That could be nice as well. But I'm going to pop mine right up in the middle here. And I mean, it wouldn't even hurt if it was, you know, hanging from the top kind of thing in there. And you could use your other little bits to kind of dress that at the top. Totally up to you. You've got free reign. You've just got lots of bits and pieces. It's like a Lego kit. You can make what you want out of it time and time again. It's just all the same pieces. Okay, so I've got those done. I'm going to pop 3 of these little berries into that bottom cluster. I kind of like groups of 3 things. You might like 2. You might want to put all 6 of them there. Totally up to you. It's your card, your project. So I'm going to pop one in the middle of there, and that's pretty much going to hide that little bottom stalk that I had crossing over. Little one up there. You could also, instead of glue on these berries, you could pop them up with a couple of little foam squares if you want to have a fight with the backing papers on those again. Amazing. So that's the finished part of that, and we can move on to doing our sentiments. So for your sentiment, in the example, I've stamped using one of the stamps that came with my part of the kit. So I had the Deck the Halls stamp. Pretty much all of your stamps that came in your kit should fit onto that sentiment circle. So you should be able to, you know, stamp whatever you would like out of that kit onto that one. Now, something else that you might want to do, and this has kind of inspired me because I found that cute wrapping paper last week that had the little, they were already circles, and they had the little cute characters on them, is I cut out a circle that matches that sentiment circle that came with the kit. So rather than stamping, I'm going to glue that onto that one, and then put the backing behind that one and glue that. I think I'm going to go up the top a little bit, and then I'm going to pop in, let's see if I can get it here, one of my black sentiment strips I'm going to pop on there for today. So just something a little bit different, just for this project. just to show a couple of different options. So if you are stamping today and you don't have wrapping paper that you want to use, you can go ahead and grab your stamp and your acrylic block and your ink pad. It might be a black ink pad or a red ink pad. Stamp away, get your sentiment ready to go, and then you'll need your liquid glue to glue it onto, again, that rough surface where the glue stick won't hold. Okay, so for me, I am though going to glue stick the back of my wrapping paper. Now there's nothing to say that if you had some plain coloured wrapping paper and you wanted to try stamping onto that and then cutting the circle out, that could be an option as well. Just depends on how glossy your wrapping paper is, because it can be quite shiny, and the ink on those stamps that we've got, the ink pads, it doesn't lend itself particularly well to stamping onto that kind of thing. You would need something like a StazOn, which is like a permanent type of ink, which goes onto non-porous surfaces, so not paper, anything that's kind of flat, very smooth, plastic, metal, things like that. It'll stamp onto things like that for you. So I've just glued down my lovely little snowman that I've done for today. I'm then going to grab my liquid glue and just give that a little bit of a whiz around so that I can get that glued down onto my backing for my sentiment. Lucky they're all circles and it doesn't matter which way around you go. Okay, I'm just going to pop my acrylic block down on there and give it a bit of a push so that it will stick. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to choose one of these little sentiments that I will put onto this card today. Well, you know what, I think it might be Christmas greetings. Try and do my very best straight cutting again. We'll see how we go. Cutting straight. How are you all going with your stamping and gluing and whatever else you're doing in the back? Okay, I'll just pop those aside. Now I can do that little trick that I taught you, because you know how we've got the little white edge, and you can use your ink pad just to go around and just tap the edge so that you make that kind of fit in with the rest of this piece of cardstock so it's all black. Just got to be careful that I don't get myself inky in the meantime. There we go. Just those little edges tidied up a little bit so they don't look like we've cut it out of something. It's good to go. Now my little snowman's not completely playing nicely and sticking with things at the moment, so I'm just going to give it a little bit more pressure. And then we'll go from there. Okay, so again with this one, on the example, I did pop this one up onto foam squares. You can see the little bit of extra dimension that we've got there. So if you like, you can certainly pop that up. I think with mine, I might just leave him to be glued down. Just trying to find a place for my little sentiment to go. What I'd really like to do is kind of hang it and put a little string up here and a little bow to make it look like it's kind of tied and hanging in the middle of the wreath. So I might just leave that there because I don't have anything with me right this second that I can do that with. Now again, you can also, once you've gotten to this point or this point, you can go in and pop a few embellishments on. So on the example one, I'd popped in just 3 of the gold ones on the top and the bottom. You might want to pop some red ones on the little berries, or you might want to, just sprinkle them around in the wreath and see how you go there. But for today, that's the two, or they're the two versions of the card that I've come up with. Yours could be very, very different to that, and that's perfectly okay. We like to see variety. This is creativity at work, so nobody's should kind of look the same unless you're very, very specifically just copying, which again is perfectly fine as well. So I hope you've really enjoyed today's sessions with those two. I look forward to seeing you post your images to the Facebook page. So I will make an album for week 3, and you can jump in there and put a comment on that album, and I post a photo of your pieces that you finished tonight. And if everyone can jump in and just say a few nice things, have a look at how other people's things turned out, and pay people a few compliments, and think about the fact that there's some ideas there that maybe you could copy or share for next time. And that's how we all learn, is by looking at other people's things. So I will send you all out your surveys at the end of the class today, and don't forget to pop in your diaries for Friday, another stream coming out at 2 p.m. I am hoping that one we will be able to do on Facebook and on YouTube, so keep an eye on both. You might find that it's easier to find the one on Facebook than the YouTube, but see how you go. If there's anything that you want to ask or want to know in between, please feel free to email me, info@papercraftingaustralia.com. Also, we've got the store up and running. There's a few things in there at the moment, but please jump on papercraftingaustralia.com. Let me know what you think and any products that you'd like me to add. Otherwise, I hope you have a good couple of days, and I'll catch you all on Friday. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.